Hey, bro. I get them for the side, but I need to pay attention. Yeah, yeah. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Sunday, man. It's the EPL roundup show. We're gonna talk about the game that just ended. Arsenal. What an incredible weekend of football. Let me go ahead and share. Just guys, go ahead and share. Let's have this conversation. And if anyone feels they want to come on and give their own analysis, their own opinion of how the game was played, you guys are very much welcome. It's an EPL show. We're gonna give a roundup of the games this weekend. As I said, some very interesting games over this weekend. Beautiful football, as we might say. It was not only the EPL, we also had the Madrid derby that was played yesterday. Real Madrid got beaten by 2 goals to 5 against Atletico Madrid, that lost by Xabi. That's his first loss for Real Madrid. Real Madrid had won. There's a 6 out of 6. Yeah, so going into this game, there was a lot of talk about how good Real Madrid was. But I usually said, hey, what was Real Madrid played? Let's wait and see. Martin says Arsenal survive. They will end up second in the EPL. Let me see. Mumbali says no sound. Hold on. No sound. Let me make sure. What's going on here? Is there no sound? I must be on mute. Hello. Okay. Sound is good. Okay. The sound is good now. The sound is good. Thank you for that, Mumbali, man. How you doing, my brother? How is Mexico? The guys over there enjoying Mexico. Yeah, so basically, we're going to talk about the games this weekend. We're going to talk about the EPL. Thank you for letting me know that the sound is now good. Yeah, hello. Okay. Okay. Thanks, bro. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the games this weekend. And thanks, guys. Let me make sure that my power doesn't go off because Seems as if I will be out of power in a minute if I don't be careful. If I'm not careful, I'll be out of power. That let me make sure. Okay, so we are now connected. We now have some power going on. So yeah, the EPL this weekend, very very interesting games. Let's just go ahead and remind you guys what happened over this weekend. As far as the EPL is concerned, interesting games over the weekend. From yesterday, Brentford beat Manchester United by a score of 3 goals to 1. Chelsea was also beaten at home by Brighton 3-1. Liverpool lost 9 seconds. Nketiah scored for Crystal Palace 2-1. Leeds and Bournemouth 2-2. Bournemouth is having a great run. Manchester City 5-star performance scored beat Burnley 5 goals to 1. Nottingham Forest, Nuno, they sacked Nuno. Now they're losing to Sunderland. I mean, Sunderland has been having a great run so far, but a team that was promoted. And Xhaka was actually the one who provided that assist for Sunderland, beating Nottingham Forest at home 1-0. Wolves stayed at the bottom of the table. They drew 1-1. It was right at the dying minutes that equalizer actually came. Today, there were two great games. Aston Villa had to come from behind in order to beat Fulham 3-1. Fulham missed a lot of opportunities, created a lot of opportunities, but they could not score. They fell to Aston Villa. Aston Villa gets its first win. They are now on 4 points. And then the game that just ended, Newcastle 1, Arsenal 2. Let me go ahead and ask you guys. Let's make this interactive. What do you guys think about Mbuemo? How many goals do you think Mbuemo will score for Manchester United this season? Remember, at Brighton, he actually scored 5 goals from the penalty spot. So out of five, now at Manchester United, Fernandez is the one taking penalties. Fernandez has already taken 3 penalties. He's missed two, score one. So do you guys actually think that Amorim should give Mbuemo some of the responsibilities to take penalties? If I'm not mistaken, at Brentford, he was 5 for 5. So he's a damn good penalty taker. The Liverpool game, this is what Slot had to say. We can only blame ourselves by defending the way we did. One of our players decided to run out because he wanted to play on counterattack, which was of no use because time was up. It was only about defending. Maybe we were too offensive minded, or one player was too offensive minded, which led to them scoring the winner and us losing the game. Now, keep in mind, Slot has won, I think, even in Champions League, if we have to count Champions League, they have won 3 or 4 games in the dying minutes of the game. So that's how they play. Even when you look at the changes that he made, he brought in Ngakpo for Bradley. Bradley is a right back. Ngakpo is a striker. Ngakpo had a great season, scoring, I think, in all competition, he scored about 20 goals last season. Curtis is a midfielder. So McAllister, he brought in a midfielder for a midfielder. So that's not too much offensive minded. Frimpong, although he's a defender, he's a right back. He's an attacking back. Kunate is not much offensive. So bringing in Frimpong, because this statement, the statement that he actually made was geared towards Frimpong. who was already advancing, trying to counterattack when Ketcher scored. So he brought in Frimpong from Konate. Chiesa came in from Wales, and Chiesa scored that equalizer. And Rio, who scored against Bournemouth, was that against Bournemouth that 9 minute, was also brought in for Isaac. Isaac actually had a poor game. So you can see Slot, he was going offensive. Yet in the press conference, he's blaming Frimpong for trying to counterattack. It was Frimpong's responsibility when Ketia actually scored. So some of these managers, we don't actually know what they want. He's just having a taste of his own medicine, the way the medicine actually tastes. And in that game, Allison, man, what a goalkeeper. He kept Liverpool in this game. In the first half alone, he had 3 saves. And I'm not talking just any type of saves, one on ones. In the second half, he had about 2 saves, critical saves, keeping Liverpool in this game. So he had a good game. Gravenberg, who has also been a standout midfielder, the first goal scored by Crystal Palace was his poor defending. Instead of heading the ball out, he headed the ball towards his goal. And that's how Sarr was able to score. So Crystal Palace remains unbeaten here. Oh, wow. I know Arsenal actually leapfrogs them today by going 2, but Crystal Palace is sitting third, 3 points. I think just 3 points away from Liverpool, if I'm not mistaken. So Crystal Palace is having a great start of the season. Now, keep in mind, this is a team that sold Easy, okay, this season in summer. Last year, they sold Olise. 4 years ago, is it 4 seasons ago? They had the Ivorian also leave. So Crystal Palace is a team that is well coached, okay? Their strength is defensively. The way they defend is well organized. They don't give you so many looks on goal. They have conceded 3 goals this season. So they are best defending team together with us. So this is a team that's well coached. Okay. So them handing Liverpool that defeat makes it, I think, just this season because Community Shield they beat Liverpool. So this is the second time they have to beat Liverpool this season. You know, so that's some great performance. When you talk about Crystal Palace. Now there was another game Chelsea actually lost at home. I spoke about Baleba having an average of about 47, 48, you know, minutes a game for 6 games so far this. However, against Chelsea, when he left the pitch in 67 minutes, his team was 1 goal down. But Chelsea also received that red card. Alaba had that red card, and Brighton was the offense. Welbeck came from the bench to score 2. A game where Brighton finally won and scored 3 goals to 1. Now, this Brighton team is a team that I've criticized for them giving away cheap goals. And the win, especially at the bridge, was actually a big win for them. 3 points gained. So I think Brighton had a very, very important win. You know, that was a great win by Brighton. So I've spoken about. Okay, let's talk a little bit here. I've spoken about Brentford. I've spoken about Chelsea versus Brighton, Crystal Palace, Liverpool, Leeds, Bournemouth, which was 2-2. Manchester City. Manchester City versus Burnley. Of course, we did not expect much from Burnley, but when Manchester City goes ahead and score 5 goals, uh, especially after that performance against Arsenal, where they were very much criticized, for being so defensive. And then they turn around and score 5 goals. We understand it's Burnley, but hey, you know, it's still fine. Tottenham and Wolves. Wolves will be very, very disappointed, with themselves for letting Tottenham that have that equalizer at the dying minutes of that game. Then today I spoke about Aston Villa having their first win, you know, beating Fulham 3 goals to 1. There's also a game on Monday where Everton actually plays Um, Everton plays West Ham. West Ham. Nuno is actually back with the EPL, and he will coach for West Ham. Now let's talk about this game: Arsenal versus Newcastle. This was the game of the weekend, and the reason why is because Liverpool have 5 points on Arsenal. Liverpool lost yesterday, so psychologically it was very important, and that's why before the game I said it was must win for Arsenal, because if Arsenal wins this, psychologically it's gonna put them in the place where they want to be, where Arteta and his team actually wants to be. Now they're just 2 points off Liverpool. That's more pressure on Liverpool. Now let's go ahead and talk about the lineup in this game. Nick Pope, he made some saves to actually keep Liverpool in this game. Great saves actually easy within 5 minutes. That short fingertip save for a corner kick, that was Nick Pope. I think he made about 4 or 5 great saves this game. Livramento, he came out without injury. You know, great defenses. Burn, Burn is so huge when he plays down the left. I saw many times Arsenal try to go above, you know, the defense. It was successful because those guys are big, they're huge, they're height. So it was very difficult to pick Saka. When Saka was trying to create one-on-one opportunities, very difficult. Oh man, my man of the match for that defense for Liverpool was Thiago. Thiago was excellent. Sven also played a good game. Then in the midfield, Liverpool's midfield, they are actually very physical. The way they play, Guimaraes, Tonali, and Joe Linton. Those guys are very, very physical, and that's why Arsenal usually have problems playing against these guys. They will put a body on you. Then I think Murphy had a great game. Murphy actually had a great game. He was really causing some problems down the wings over there. Then Waldmate scored that goal. He got stopped. Great header. Great header. There was no foul on Gabriel. I think Gabriel during that goal, we all saw that he position, and so he was just trying to play clean. Unfortunately for him, the goal was actually given. Gordon didn't do much, but I think it was just because Arsenal defensively actually a very very good team. Let's look at Arsenal's lineup. Arsenal's lineup was actually great in my opinion. I know in previous lineups a lot of criticism has been on Arteta not starting easy, maybe being too negative. He gave a lineup where most people, well, I was satisfied. Looking at the lineup, I was actually satisfied. The only surprise I had was Mosquera. Okay. And my reasoning was just like, okay, why don't you play Saliba? I'm not sure why he started Mosquera. Not that the kid has not been good but because of experience. I know some people want to criticize him for giving that away that cheap, corner kick. But sometimes in games like this, all you need as a defender is do the simple things. Just put the ball out for throwing, and then you allow the defense, okay, to reorganize themselves. But he did not do that. He went to a corner kick that led to that goal. But overall, I think he had a good game. Timber was solid defensively. Gabriel, he was caught underneath that cross for the corner kick, and the goal went down too easily. He tried to trick uh, the ref, but I know he redeemed himself with that goal. Calafiori also had a great game. Good. Zubimendi in that midfield, it was difficult. When Arsenal actually plays Zubimendi and Rice, and I think in that holding midfielder position for teams that sit deep, it's too rigid sometimes. It's too rigid sometimes. Not a lot of creativity, and we saw that in the first half, even deep into the second half. When Odegaard came, things changed because Eze alone was not enough. We Liverpool actually, I mean, Newcastle defense, defense difficult, especially in that mid part. Difficult to actually beat them. They are compact. They're playing 5-4-1 at a certain point. So how are you going to break them down? They understand the spaces and they make the passing in those spaces very, very difficult for teams to navigate. I've spoken about Declan Rice. Okay, AZ actually started Saka, Trossard to the left, and Gyökeres. Gyökeres worked sucked off. Fortunately, he did not score, but now you can see how much work he gives defenders. He had an amazing game, even without scoring, because he was involved. He made the defenders work, and this was actually a very, very good game. Now, let's go ahead and look at the stats, and then we can look at the changes because at one point I said, okay, for Arsenal to have, or to change this game, it's going to come from the bench. And we saw how Odegaard got in, Reno got in, had that winner, but it had that equalizer. Gabriel was the one who had the winner. Saliba came in. So the difference of this game, I'm talking, came out from the bench for Arsenal. You saw Newcastle actually went defensively, at one point because they were trying to protect the lead. They were trying to make it compact at the back. They tried, but that was not good enough because the bench of Arsenal was just better. That's what these games actually come down to. Trippier was born in for Liverpool. Lechel's, Bands, Sula was brought in, Elanga, so they made all five changes. Arsenal, Merino came in and got that equalizer. Skelly came in to defend to make sure that Arsenal doesn't. That was when it was 1-1. To make sure that Arsenal was tight at the back. You know, Then we also had Martinelli who came in. I think he came in, did well. Odegaard, when Odegaard actually came in, he gave another dimension to Arsenal team. He is that kind of player that's very difficult to press because he's so elusive. His game, the way he keeps the ball close to throat, is so elusive. So at one point, Newcastle were not going to rush us. So Arsenal had more time on the ball. And when you give a team like Arsenal more time on the ball, they become very, very dangerous. Okay? So at one point, it was as if Arsenal is not going to score. Yeah, because it was difficult. One player, the man of the match that I want to point out was Declan Rice. Declan Rice, he did it at both ends of the ball because there was no time he was allowed the role to go a little bit further. The creativity was not there. I ain't gonna lie, like especially in the first half when he plays together with Zubimendi. For me, I think he was rigid. However, in the second half, when Ateta changed things tactically, making sure that Eze had more space to operate. Rice actually basically felt like deep a double pivot together with Zubimendi. And at one point that maybe Marino is gonna come in and Rice gonna go out. No. And Arteta was like, okay, what am I gonna do? He pulled out Zubimendi in. I was like, okay, wow. Left, right as a holding, and then brought in Marino. Guess who scored? I mean, that is just awareness because Rice was able to cross. The reason why I was able to cross that ball without much pressure on him is because Odegaard made it possible. You know, the backward pass that led to that corner kick. Then when the ball recycled came to Rice, there was no pressure on Rice. I was able to pick Merino lancing header. Great. You know, Liverpool at Newcastle, I'm sorry, Newcastle at that point was so, and when it was 1-1, what did they do? You try to maybe go back at Arsenal when they didn't have the right structures of players. And Nick Pope, who had an excellent day so far. If it was 1-1, you easily give maybe man of the match to Nick Pope. What does he do? He tried to play fast, poor clear before back to Arsenal. Then it leads to a corner kick. And guess who comes on and scores? Gabriel. Now that's leadership. You can blame him for that first goal, the opener by Newcastle, but guess what? He comes back and gets all 3 points to Arsenal. I mean, what do you guys make of this game today? Because I mean, there are so many talking points when it comes to this game and what this game actually means for Arsenal. EPL. Okay, there's just so many talking points. Let me see. Martin says Mbeumo will score 10 goals without penalty. Sesko will score 5 goals. Sesko 5 goals. Yeah. Mbeumo, yeah. I mean, if Mbeumo scores 10 goals for Manchester United, I think it's going to be a miracle because for that team without penalties, then that's going to be tough. I'm not sure without penalty. I think maybe, you know, for team chemistry, for strong team building, I think at some point he will also be given the duties of kicking penalties. Hey, Come Crouch, how you doing, man? How did you actually see the game today, man? Come, the game Arsenal versus Newcastle. Arsenal actually came back to this game. I mean, that shows that they will actually, in my opinion, they are the front runners. I've been saying that because uh, balance that they have in their team. They have one of the most balanced teams. We have the deepest bench in my opinion. Of course, Liverpool made three big buys in this transfer window. Is that the key to care and where's Phillips? However, I think that buying those three offensive-minded players without taking care of defense, or maybe adding more creativity, maybe in the midfield, like from the defensive line to the midfield part, I think that for me that just reminds me of Real Madrid, where you have so much offensive power, but you can always start one strike at a time. I mean, a center forward, one center forward at a time. It's gonna be easy either that or now you can push a to your left. But when you put a kitty to your left, what happens? When you push a kitty to your left, what happens? Let me see. Let me see if I can bring. Let me see if I can bring Watson on the line. He actually bring them on video. Let me send request. Let me see if I can, because that's a great football man, great Manchester City fan. And if he's available, we can actually have this conversation with him. But as I was saying, you know, that's cool for me. Uh, I've done some good business during the summer. However, I feel that the team is just balanced in that aspect. Too much offensive power, not enough in their defense. Although Allison is actually keeping them in games, he looks sound, strong. That's the type of goalkeeping that wins you titles. We played against them, 5 saves against Mateta. And a player like Mateta, I've always looked at him like just too robust and all that. That guy is technically good. He's technically strong the bar. Yesterday for Crystal Palace, Crystal Palace would have easily won by a margin. Bet for guys like someone says I'm breaking out. Let me put the mic closer. Yeah. Bet for guys like let's say Allison, you know, um, it could have been a bigger, let's say bigger scoreline. Again, I take high. So yeah. So just let me know if I'm still breaking up. Let me see. Let me see if I'm still breaking up. Am I still breaking up? So yeah, let me see. So let's go ahead and see what the stats actually had us for this game. I know percentage wise when it comes to possession, goal expectancy 2.5 for Arsenal. So Arsenal I was actually clinical. That means Arsenal was actually clinical because they had 7 shots on target. Some of those were like great saves, from Pope. He had some excellent saves from Pope. Newcastle had 3 shots on target. Shots off target, 7 for Arsenal, 1 for Newcastle. 4 blocks for Newcastle, 6 for Arsenal. Possession wise, Arsenal dominated that by huge margin, 64% to 36. Corner kicks, Arsenal had 12. They scored from one. Newcastle also scored from one corner. Not many offsides, just one time for Newcastle, 0 for Arsenal. And as I said, the fouls, it was a very physical game, 9 against 8 for Arsenal. Yellow cards, Newcastle had 2, Arsenal 1. There's been something about throw-ins now in games. We see a lot of these long throws. It's just like tactically, I mean, the game is everybody is doing it now. Long throws, long balls into the box, because it's been realized that teams are not dealing with them that good. Crosses, Arsenal 11-3 for Newcastle. Oh, goalkeeper saves. You see, Pope had 5 saves, while Arsenal goalkeeper had 2 saves. Okay. So that was actually a very, very brilliant game when you think about the stakes, when you think about when you see the quality that was out there, the two managers going at each other and everybody looking to take all 3 points. So this was a type of game that we expected. And it's not easy to go out there and win it at St. James Park. Very few teams. Liverpool went there out and won. Liverpool went there and won also. Arsenal went there and did it in their own style. Liverpool actually won 1-0. Arsenal has gone there and won 2-1, coming from behind with just barely about 10 minutes to play. They scored 2 goals. So that tells you everything you need to know about this title chase. Odegaard. Odegaard, there are some games where Odegaard will not be, but when Odegaard is playing like this, being at his best, I know he played maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. That's not enough time to actually maybe analyze him in a whole season. But he came in, took instructions, and was able to deliver. Mikel Arteta, he's under pressure. Many criticize him, but today, as he says, his philosophy, he doesn't call subs. He calls them finishers. And there's a story behind this. He is friends with a legendary baseball former Dodger coach. And in American sports, they have a lot of finisher, closers. In baseball, you have closers. So he calls his subs closers, like Merino. Merino came, helped close the game. They were a goal down, that equalizer. So psychologically, you know, his own thought process, his own way of elevating the team is by calling them finishers as opposed to subs. Subs has a negative connotation, maybe not good enough. You're a substitute, you're not good enough. But a finisher, you have a specific role you're coming to play. You come in to finish. You come in to dot the I's. And that's what Merino, Odegaard, Saliba, who else came in as a sub, Skelly, and all other subs for Arsenal. Martinelli, that's what they came, and that's what they came in to do, and they made sure that Arsenal got all 3 points. What are your thoughts? Let's be interactive with this. Thanks for watching. Your boy, True Lion.